It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.
George Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
Happy birthday. You wait for years for new parties to come along to bust open the discredited hulk of the previous one, and two come along at once. Happy birthday to Elon Musk's America Party, and almost happy birthday to Jeremy Corbyn's new vehicle. And speaking of vehicles, a British ship, is listing and taking in water in the Red Sea after coming under attack from the Yemeni People's Army. The same army which closed Ben Gurion Airport this afternoon by landing not one, but two hypersonic missiles on Israel's international airport. And Tony Blair's hand is revealed in the Gaza Riviera project. Shocked? Anyone? It's all coming up here on the mother of all talk shows over the next 2 hours. Stay tuned.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
Who'd have thunk it? Tony Blair is involved in the attempt to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip, shunt 2 million Palestinians into a tiny and totally destroyed area, leaving the rest for the Elysian fields of Trump Towers, condominiums, and a new Gaza Riviera. Like we need a new Riviera. At least we need it more than the Palestinian refugees eking out a dismal existence there these 70 years past and more. Tony Blair, the Labour Prime Minister. The Labour Prime Minister that launched the wars with George W. Bush in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Labour Prime Minister with the blood of millions on his hands already. The Labour Prime Minister who made well over £100 million in gold for the services rendered whilst he was the British Prime Minister, one of the richest men in Britain, richer than Croesus, and all his money-grubbing celebrity family too. You'd think that would be enough. You'd think that level of death and destruction and the filthy lucre that came with it would be enough. But no, Mr. Blair's hand is revealed in the Abraham Accord, Donald Trump and family business. He is one of those advising on how they can turn it into a hub. It's a great word, hub, isn't it? It conjures up all kinds of white-hot heat of technology. The fact that it's on the bones of hundreds of thousands of people, the fact that it's on the graves of the Palestinian nation, the fact that it's on the toxic ruins of what has become of Gaza appears not to matter to them. Get the fake grass rolled out, get the sprinklers going, the fountains gushing, and the swimming pools glittering azure. On the Mediterranean, hey, presto, you've got a Gaza Riviera. There are no words, at least no words of contempt, strong enough to describe how I feel about Tony Blair, except this: I feel almost as much detestation and contempt for the guy who's followed him. He's not as well known. Many of you will not know quite how bad he is. If I tell you that Sir Keir Starmer is the least popular British Prime Minister there has ever been, and in those stakes both Mr. Blair and Margaret Thatcher and Liz Truss all feature, but Keir Starmer is by far and away the least popular, or I should say the most unpopular Prime Minister that Britain has ever had. And hey, it's only his first anniversary. That's right, in just 12 months, Keir Starmer has become the most hated man in the land ever. And there are ample reasons for it, many of them domestic, many of them foreign policy linked. This is the man that kicked our disabled people out of their wheelchairs, or at least he tried to. He was forced to backtrack on some, but not all, of his plans to make disabled people's lives even more miserable, and is threatening to take it out on the poorest children in the land with deleterious changes to the child benefit structures. This is the man who helped, with his party, hasten the day of voluntary euthanasia, they like to call it. In other words, shuffling our old people, our terribly disabled people, our people who've been made to feel like they are a burden, no longer likely to turn a profit, into suicide pods for the profit of the death company that will administer them. He is the man whose party legislated just the other week to legalize late-term abortions. Do you know what I mean by late-term abortions? I mean abortions up to and including the day that the child was due to be born. How's that for late-term abortions? I've just been with not one, but two newborn babies. That's why I'm not in a studio this evening. I've just been with two newborn babies. And under Labour, Britain would have allowed their murder on the day that they were due to be born. This is a man, Keir Starmer, who froze our old age pensioners through a very cold winter just 6 months ago. That's apart from the 3,000 old age pensioners who literally froze to death. Not my figures, the government's own figures. My figures would be double or even treble that. but the government's own figures say that 3,000 old age pensioners in Britain died of hypothermia as a result of his removal of the cold weather payments to which they had previously been allowed. Now, why did he do such wicked things? Well, I'm afraid the obvious answer is that he did them to give the money away. To give the money away to the footpad, the pickpocket, little Zelensky. He literally gave the same sum of money that he took from Britain's poorest and oldest and gave it directly to Zelensky, and moreover promised that Britain would go on doing so for 100 years. This is the man who said that without qualification, it's a very heavy and important phrase. Most of us would not say anything without qualification. I mean, I really love my wife, but not without qualification. There is nothing that I love without qualification except the Almighty himself. But Keir Starmer is a Zionist without qualification. His words. So that means that he, without qualification, supports anything that the Zionist settler state called Israel decides to do. And when it decided to cut off food, water, electricity, and medicine from millions of people, half of them women, half of them young, I saw his lips move, no point in denying it now. I saw his lips move on a local radio station called LBC. He said that Israel had the right to do so. This is a man who's guilty of participation in relentless bombardment of the poorest people in the world, namely the people of Yemen. But the people of Yemen are fighting back. And looking at the anxious communiques from the British government, from the Red Sea right now, an Israel-bound British ship would appear to have been holed, listing and taking in water. May God preserve the sailors on board, if not the cargo. This is a Yemeni people that just this afternoon managed to land not one but two, not ballistic, but hypersonic missiles on the international airport, the only international airport in the aforementioned settler state of Israel, closing Ben Gurion Airport to the double passport holders, which is most of the citizens of Israel who were headed for the coast, and not the Gaza Riviera coast either. This is a man who is up to his neck in the blood of Russian people and Ukrainian people. The Russian people because his supplied missiles, guided by his supplied intelligence, guided by his supplied special forces and his encouraged British mercenaries, have not just prolonged but deepened the bloodshed in the war in Ukraine. This man, Keir Starmer, is responsible more than any other European leader for supporting, exhorting, and copper-plating the regime in Kiev, which continues to fight a war which it has already lost at the cost of huge dislocation, death, and destruction. 9 million Ukrainians have left the country. More than 1 million Ukrainians are dead, having been press-ganged into Zelensky's army with the cries of Keir Starmer's fight on, to the last drop of Ukrainian blood ringing in his ears. I could go on about Keir Starmer all night. But I'm going to desist because I want to talk about the dramatic development that occurred this week. It doesn't matter that it went off half-cocked. It doesn't matter that it was swiftly walked back in the most delicate terms. The birth of a new political party in Britain, led by the former Labour leader who obtained the highest increase in the Labour share of the vote since the Second World War. Man who built a party of 600,000 people and who was cruelly brought down by the Israel lobby in the United States and in Britain, and of course with ample assistance from the American and Israeli embassies in London. Jeremy Corbyn has been a friend of mine for more than 40 years. He's a brave and tenacious man. The fact that at 76 he's getting ready to launch a new political organization is commendable and a credit to him and his family. We have some political disagreements, but they are on issues that we ought to be able to put to one side. If his new party, if I prefer the word alliance so that everyone can join it, if his new alliance restricts itself to the 3, 5, 7, 10 max points of agreement, he can unite, as Mélenchon tried to do in France, all of the forces of the left, all of the socialist and radical forces, and he could really make an impact. He can definitely bring Keir Starmer's government to a shuddering defeat, and maybe long before the scheduled general election of 2029. I wish Mr. Corbyn well. I hope that we in the Workers' Party will be able to join him, and if there's anything that we can do to help make that happen, we are ready to do so. If it turns out that we are not able to join forces, then at least we must make an electoral agreement so that we don't end up fighting against each other on the same ballot paper in the same constituencies. I think the Corbyn development will be very significant, but I am certain that the Elon Musk development in the United States is going to change everything. I see the bleats. I heard from some fossil, a man that hated the House of Lords but is now in the House of Lords, a man that hated the European Union and then milked the European Union for millions. I refer, of course, to the fossil formerly known as Neil Kinnock. His line, which I thought was a trifle homophobic, was that Corbyn's new vehicle would be a Farage assistance group. I don't have to spell out the acronym to you, I'm sure. And I hear it from the United States that Musk will let the other people in. Well, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But maybe it's a good thing to break up the sclerotic political systems that exist in both the United Kingdom and in the United States. Isn't that a good thing? Or have they done so well with that system that we should leave it alone? Is it the case that the uni party in Britain, the uni party in America, has such a glittering record of success that we should leave it alone? Or is it an almost unmitigated disaster? I say the latter. What say you? So anything that takes a hammer and smashes that mold has got to be a good thing. Now, I don't support Elon Musk's America Party. I don't even support Elon Musk for all his achievements. Apart from anything else, I'm suing him in the High Court in Dublin. But I do support his initiative, because his initiative can only break the vice-like grip, and I use the word vice advisedly, the vice-like grip on the American people held by the warmongering, globalized capitalist mongers that have ruled in blue ties and in red ties for so very, very long in the United States, and have beggared whole communities of millions of people, have dealt out death and destruction all over the world. Look, don't tell the wife, but when I was born, the Korean War had only just finished, and the bodies were still unburied from Korea, through Vietnam, through Indonesia, through all of the wars in Africa and Asia, all of the fascist coups d'etats in Latin America. I've lived through them all, and they were all conducted by American presidents of one supposed political hue or another. So I'm for breaking that. Now, I don't suppose I'll support anything in Elon Musk's political platform except one thing, and it's on that I will need to finish, given the hour. Elon Musk's platform includes a demand for freedom of speech. A freedom of speech which has markedly improved on his own platform X, though still has quite a bit of improvement to go. He supports the First Amendment. It's called the First Amendment for a reason. Without freedom of speech, you don't have any other freedoms at all. Without free speech, you don't have any democracy at all. For if people are not free to say what they think, not only are you abusing their rights by closing them down, you are depriving yourself of what might, just might, be the benefit of their advice, which, as John Stuart Mill said, is a crime, therefore, against everyone. Now, I cannot say what I would like to say now, because I would risk 14 years in prison, and I'm 70, with a 5-year-old child, with an 8-year-old child, with a 10-year-old child, with a 13-year-old child, with an 18-year-old child. I can't go to prison for 14 years. But that's what would happen if I said to you what I'm burning to say inside. British people, at least, know exactly what I mean. This is the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.
The airwaves. This savannah is a rigid dichotomy of fact and fiction. As Fisher says, the Twitter sphere where the slightest misjudgment can spell being cancelled. One species rules over the airwaves through its ability to adapt and survive in even the harshest environments. The George Galloway. The top cat in these parts, it is mostly active on Sunday evenings in Britain and mid-afternoon in the United States. It seldom roars during the day. Most notable for its wide variety of headdress, it protects these parts from the mainstream media. You can catch this fine specimen on the mother of all talk shows. Don't pick a fight with it. They've been known to bite back.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Okay, here's the poll for the evening. Are the old political parties finished? Yes or no? You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on my Twitter, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, to give a thumbs up to the show, and to share with your friends and colleagues that we are broadcasting live right now and have got the great Scott Ritter coming up in just a moment or two. If you want to call the show, it's toll-free in the United States and Canada, and the number is +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 08081 965522, and the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. Now, do I need to introduce Scott Ritter to you? He's a man that knows more, has forgotten more about war and the politics of war than virtually anybody alive. He is our most popular guest, always on the mother of all talk shows, and he certainly will always be welcome here by me. Scott Ritter, former Marine intelligence officer. Tell us, if you will, before we get on to your areas of absolute speciality, what do you make of Elon Musk's new party?
I'm thrilled to death. Look, I'm a longtime Republican, Reagan Republican. I've watched the Republican Party, just become something that's unrecognizable under George W. Bush. And saw Donald Trump make a move to transform it. His first term, of course, was not transformative. I guess out of an abundance of hope and wishful thinking, believed that his second term would be the revolution that he promised. And it just turns out it's just one giant grift. He is the same as he's always been. It was a knowable fact that, that I overlooked. And we need a change. And I think that what Elon Musk is proposing, this third party, is the change we need. America can't accept a continuation of the uniparty duality that has corrupted our country for these many past decades.
He, quoting Sun Tzu, clearly intends to concentrate overwhelming force at one particular point or set of points on the electoral battlefield. In other words, he's not going to scattergun his political efforts over the entire country, but concentrate on what you might call swing states. Is that wise, and is that your understanding of what he intends to do?
It's my understanding of what he intends to do, and taking a look at the failure of third-party movements historically in the United States that have tried to challenge the existing power elites across the entire spectrum of politics and have failed. I think his approach to pick some swing states and get just enough seats to become the swing vote. And now you have, there's a lot of talk. I spoke with Dennis Kucinich, a man who I have a deep admiration for, former congressman from the state of Ohio, former mayor of Cleveland, and he was running for office as an independent in Ohio. And he said, look, with the House as close as it is, one independent vote now that could spell the difference, makes you almost the most powerful person in Congress. Could you imagine having 10 to 12 votes in the House of Representatives? And if you took those 10 to 12 votes and put them on an issue, that issue wins, the leverage that you now have. The same thing in a Senate that is as close to 50-50 as it can get, having 2 or 3 senators This is brilliance on the part of Elon Musk. And once you can establish that leverage, then you can show the American people that there is the possibility of change and you can begin to grow. So rather than shooting for the moon, you take, you accomplish a task that will be meaningful. I mean, if he can accomplish this, if he truly can get a purple party to challenge the red and the blue, this could be that which is necessary to fix America. Because right now, the dual party system has broken America. I mean, we just 37 trillion in debt. We're up to 42 trillion automatically because of some stupid bill that violates every promise the president made on the campaign trail. We need a third party.
I remember saying, Scott, I think you probably remember it too, when Tony Blair expelled me from the Labour Party over the Iraq War. I remember saying, and I rolled my R's as I was saying it, that Tony Blair will rue the day that he did this. And I'm glad to say I did make him rue it, not twice, but 3 times. Donald Trump will rue the day that he, for no real good reason, fell out with Elon Musk, won't he?
I believe so, but I also believe in retrospect that this falling out was inevitable. Elon Musk is a man who he and I don't agree on everything. I think you've made the same comment. I will forever embrace Elon Musk as a defender of free speech. And I also respect the fact that Elon Musk, more than any American politician I've met recently or know, is a man of character, a man of substance. And when the president brought him in to make these changes to look for fraud and abuse in the government, Elon Musk did this job. And now the president has been shown to be a liar, a grifter, a user. And he turned his back on. He got what he needed from Elon Musk, the political headlines, and then he discarded Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has every right to take umbrage at this. The American public should definitely take umbrage at this. And Donald Trump will rue the day. I can't roll my R's like you, but he will rue the day that he jettisoned Elon Musk.
I hung out with Elon Musk's father in Moscow, and with due account for the fact that a father and son, it's a close relationship, he did say one thing, and he said it more than once, and if it turns out to be accurate, will change a lot of things. He said that Musk hates lying. In fact, an excess of veracity has often been the cause of great trouble and strife for him. And that he discovered that Trump and his circle were just as big a set of liars than Biden and Harris and their circle. If true, that'll be a big breakthrough, won't it?
Absolutely. I think that's one thing that Elon Musk and I have in common is an over-adherence to the truth. It does get you in trouble a lot because the world is not black and white, and many people operate in different shades of gray. And for somebody who embraces veracity, embraces the truth, that shade of gray can oftentimes be a difficult place to operate. And politicians succeed by being able to operate in that gray without violating to an extreme fashion, issues of integrity. Elon Musk will never be a politician for that reason, because he appears to be a man who says what he means and means what he says, and this is a good thing. America needs more of this. The legend of Americans, and I say legend because I understand it's not the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but the legend of Americans are that we are people maybe simple compared to the complexity of Europe. But we're people that stood our ground, looked you in the eye, put out our hand, and when we shook your hand, that was a contract. That's what I grew up on. I mean, to this day, I tell people the signature on a piece of paper doesn't mean as much to me as a handshake. If I look you in the eye and I shake your hand, that's my word to you that it will get done or I will die trying. And I think Elon Musk is that kind of guy. And we need more of that in America. I mean, this is our foundational principles. And I'm, like I said, I'm not I can't say that I worship Elon. I don't worship anybody except my wife. But I can't find fault with a man who believes in telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's never a bad thing.
Amen to that. Let's turn to the war, or rather the wars. Can I get your take, first of all, Scott, on the news which is coming out? Until I came on air, there were several anxious statements from the British that a ship, which I presume therefore to be British, has been punctured in the Red Sea by the Yemen People's Army, the Ansar Allah. It would appear that it came under attack, that the Yemenis at least say that it was bound for Israel. And twinned with that, the astonishing fact that from this poor desert republic, astonishingly levels of accuracy of ballistic and now hypersonic missiles are being fired and landing right on Ben Gurion Airport. What is this Yemen? Has it been visited by aliens that are super proficient in the arts of war? What is it that makes the Yemenis so incredibly tenacious, brave, and accurate in their fire?
George, when I was a weapons inspector in Iraq, the first thing that I had to come to grips with was that the Iraqis were some of the finest scientists in the world, that they had been educated in European schools, European universities, and these weren't simple Bedouin tribesmen who put on a suit and were out of place. These were cultured intellectuals of the highest order. And the next thing I learned is that the Iraqis, in many ways, looked to the Yemeni for guidance on certain technical issues. For instance, the Yemeni had the SS-21 Tochka missile. The Iraqis borrowed a missile, SS-21, from the Yemenis to reverse engineer it, and were in coordination with the Yemenis about the complexities of guidance and control. And this is in the 1990s, early 1990s.
Wow.
And it always struck me. I'm like, wait a minute, this is Yemen. These guys wear sandals, and they have, they wear dish rags around their heads. And I mean, I'm being very racist right now.
A knife,
and they have the curved knife. And it's a cool looking knife. But I mean, come on, man. This is the modern world we're talking about. And the Iraqis, whenever they spoke of the Yemeni, always spoke in the highest degree, not only about their technical proficiencies, but, and I'll give another war story. We were trying to get, during the Gulf War, we were trying to get the Saudis to redeploy troops to the Kuwaiti border. After all, Iraq invaded Kuwait, and we were concerned about the Saudis moving down into the eastern provinces. And we're like, why aren't you moving your forces? And the Saudis said, we ain't moving any forces off the Yemeni border. Those guys are crazy. And if they come over the border, they could take Riyadh. And I'm like, wait a minute, these are just guys who wear sandals and wear dish rags, and they got a knife. Why are you worried about them? The Yemeni have been misunderstood by the West forever. Yes, they wear sandals. Yes, they wear dish rags. And yes, they have a cool knife. But that's cultural, traditional things. They also have PhDs. They also are engineers of the highest order. They know how to run a modern society. If you've been to the city of Sana'a, you'll see it as a modern, functioning city, as is many other places in Yemen. And when it comes to their defense, they had incorporated some of the most sophisticated weaponry of their day, and they knew how to use it. They're experts in its use. And when it came time to modifying the weapons that they had, these Scud missiles that they had, converting them into longer range missiles with greater capabilities, not only were they capable of doing this on their own, but when provided the opportunity to receive assistance from Iran, were able to rapidly assimilate the complexities of the engineering the Iranians were speaking of and adapt it to their indigenous manufacturing base, which is quite sophisticated. And so anybody who has studied Yemen and studied Yemeni engineering and their military industry, it would not come as a surprise that these fantastic scientists and engineers were able to build these weapons. But for people who continue to be bound by the prejudice of their ignorance, you wake up one morning to find a Yemeni missile puncturing your ship in the Red Sea, wondering how the hell this happened.
Yeah, they also speak the purest Arabic and are said to be the purest in faith matters also. Yemen is a very special place indeed. Let's go to the Holy Land next. The Chief of Staff of the Israeli army is said to have had a big shouting match with Netanyahu this week. He said to Netanyahu, "We cannot govern 2 million people in the Gaza Strip. Who's going to govern them?" And Netanyahu said, "The state of Israel will govern them. Now get ahead and obey your orders." Then I started looking at recent videos of the guerrilla fighting, which is continuing in the ruins of Gaza. I mean, it would not have been out of place in Stalingrad, house-to-house fighting. And the superior armed Israeli occupiers were getting one hell of a pounding from, not in sandals, but in sneakers, these young fellows who are ready to die, to plant an IED under a half-track, under a tank, and shoot anything that moves coming out of it. The Israelis are not doing well in Gaza, militarily, never mind in public relations around the world, would you say?
The Israelis are losing militarily and in public relations around the world. This is an abject disaster for Israel. I mean, even the 12-day war with Iran, which is supposed to, show Israel's military supremacy over Iran, has failed. The censorship of Israel can't hide the fact that the Iranians dealt serious blows to the Israelis. It was the Israelis, after all, who begged for this ceasefire. And now we have Gaza. I don't want to say I told you so, but one of the first articles I wrote about a prolonged conflict with Gaza, in Gaza by the Israelis, I said, look, the Hamas is luring Israel into a piece of terrain. Israel will have the ability to destroy the buildings. But when that happens, you will get Stalingrad on the surface combined with Iwo Jima on the bottom. If you know the Battle of Iwo Jima, how the Japanese dug tunnels into Mount Suribachi, then below, and it haunted the Marines as they advanced. The Japanese would come up out of the ground behind the Marines, sometimes in the Marines' foxholes, pull the Marines down and kill them. Yes, the Marines were able to defeat that because they didn't have Stalingrad on top of that. They had black volcanic sand. But now you combine Stalingrad on the top with the tunnels on the bottom, and Israel will never defeat this, ever defeat this. Not as long as there are Hamas fighters ready and prepared to give their lives in the struggle. And this is what we see. We saw in the first, was it 11, 15 months of fighting, I think 15 months, the when Hamas came out from the tunnels, this wasn't a bunch of ragtag guys who just gotten their butts kicked. This was a proud army. They strong, uniformed, disciplined. Yes, in the north, when the northern brigades came out intact, they looked a little haggard because they had been fighting the fight. But they weren't defeated. They were, resolute. And the Israelis, on the other hand, are a broken army. Gaza has changed them. Even with, amongst the true believers in Israel, within the IDF, they acknowledge that Gaza has destroyed them morally. They are finished. They are done. They are committing murder on a scale. There's not even a pretense anymore. They just straight up say we're killing civilians. We're shooting into the civilians to establish our presence. We're murdering the civilians just to shape the psychological. Well, this is a war crime every day. And this is another thing that I said, sadly, we're going to get to the point where the world just wakes up and it's normal to see 147 dead Palestinian children. And we just go, oh, another day. This should shock us to death. We had a flood in Texas, and tragically, a couple dozen young children have lost their lives, swept away by the waters, and a nation is in mourning. Well, my God, what about the dozens that are killed every day in Gaza by American bombs dropped by an American ally working on the political instructions of an American president? Where's the outrage? Where's the shock? There is none. This is a sad state of affairs that we're in. But the bottom line is the Hamas fighters know. They know who's killing the children. They know who's to blame, and they will never surrender. Never surrender. I don't know how many times Donald Trump has to say, we're going to get rid of Hamas. You're not going to get rid of Hamas, Donald Trump. You don't have what it takes to get rid of Hamas. Hamas is there in the ground, and you can't get them out. And the Israeli chief of staff knows that, and Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have to learn that the hard way.
Mm-hmm. I've kept you a long time, but if you'll forgive me, one last question, Scott. The biggest enchilada of them all, though all of those have been big ones. What on earth is happening with the American administration in Ukraine? Little Zelensky said today that he just had his best ever call with Donald Trump. Yet the day before, Trump and Putin seemed to get on famously in another very long phone call. How do you make sense of what the Americans are doing or see as their goal in the Ukraine conflict?
Earlier we talked about Elon Musk and how he was a stickler for veracity, for truth. What we're seeing at play here is the byproduct of an administration that stands for nothing whatsoever. And what we're also seeing is that President Trump cannot get the better of President Putin. That President Putin is a very sage man, a very wise man who will not yield at all. He doesn't give President Trump any leverage at all on the issue of Ukraine. He is just straightforward. These are our demands. This is what we're going to do. And Trump can't take him off that stance. But Trump also understands that there has to be better relations with Russia. So he is capable of pursuing better relations. And yet on Ukraine, he doesn't know how to admit defeat. See, Donald Trump is incapable. He's such a narcissist, such an egomaniac, that it's impossible for him to say, yeah, we need to cut our losses. Who among us hasn't at some point in time in their life gotten deep into a problem or something and said, this ain't going right. This is wrong. We got to cut. We got to go. We got to reset. Donald Trump can't do that because his ego won't let him. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to use words to salve the wounds of Zelensky. We're going to use words to salve the wounds of our NATO allies, but we can't back it up with anything. The president is promising Patriot missile batteries and Patriot missiles that don't exist, that we don't have to deliver. He's making promises to Europe of American support if Europe bankrupts itself by committing to a 5% GDP increase of their defense spending, not recognizing, and I don't think many people do, that 2.5% GDP defense sometimes is the equivalent of the entire government budget of some of these nations. And to go to 5 means that that's all you're spending your money on. A GDP is not a reflection of the budget. It's a reflection of the gross domestic product. Trump we're in for a very ugly period because it's only going to get worse. Just like, as you know, as a man of integrity, as you've watched politicians lie throughout their lives, and I've watched people lie throughout their lives, you just dig the hole deeper. Your lies just dig the hole deeper, make the problem more difficult to solve. In the end, the only solution that's going to come from Ukraine is the Russian solution, which Putin has said will take as long as it needs to take. He's under no timeline, no political timeline. Whereas, Trump and everybody else, they are operating on political timelines. Each one of them is looking at a ticking clock of their political fate as it ticks down to their demise if they don't change something, and they don't have the courage to say we were wrong in Ukraine. And as you have pointed out over and over again, the people that are going to pay the price are the Ukrainian people, whose lives will continue to be squandered in this ridiculous game of American hegemony, European relevance. I don't know if you saw the news. The Russians this last week, no matter how many times the Western media is going to spin lies, the Russians lost the lowest number of soldiers in the war in the last week, meaning, and they killed more Ukrainians than ever before. 156 Russians, I believe, lost their lives. That's tragic. These were numbers that broke America's back during the Vietnam War. We bringing home 200 dead boys a week, and it broke us. So it's painful for the Russians. They lost 156. They killed 1,200 and something. That's a kill ratio that can't be sustained by the Ukrainians, but it's one that the West appears to be willing to let continue so that Donald Trump's ego can be, stroked.
As Shakira said, Scott, hips don't lie, and neither do BlackRock investors. And they have cut and run because they've discovered that BlackRock were claiming ownership rights to resources that are now and forevermore under the feet of the Russian army. So that too is a very telling inflection point, isn't it?
Absolutely. And these investors, I can't say I've worked with BlackRock, but I remember back in 1998, 1999, when I first resigned and my name was everywhere, I was brought in as a consultant by global hedge funds and global investment companies of a similar sort. And they wanted my geopolitical analysis so that they could make these kind of investment decisions. And they play to win. And they have the ability to leverage a lot of influence through money, through investments, et cetera. And, for them to walk away from an investment of the sort that they've made in Ukraine is indicative of their conclusion that this situation cannot be reversed. Because normally, they can play the long game. So they could say, okay, we're going to hold on to this for 20 years. And it'll reverse in 20 years. We'll just take the losses, whatever ledger magic they do. But for them to walk away now means that this will never change. That, as you said, it is now and forever part of Mother Russia, and there's nothing that's going to change that. And that is the biggest tell of them all.
Scott Ritter, as always, a masterpiece. Thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. Our poll tonight, are the old political parties finished? Yes or no? It's a simple question, though the answer is a little bit divided. You can vote on my Telegram channel, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. If you want to call the show, it's toll-free in the US and Canada, +1 844-944-3344. It's free of charge in the British and Irish theatre, 08081965522. And in the worldwide global audience, it's 0044203962625. Let me take a quick break and I'll be right back. Stay tuned. A big thanks to the people who support me on the Patreon page. I really have come to depend on the income from that. It costs £1 a week, not even the price of a cup of coffee in an insalubrious cafe. If you think you could stretch to that, please support me on Patreon, patreon.com/George Galloway. Now, the MOATS team have added a tiered system on my Patreon page where you can become an official MOATS graduate. How about that? I speak as someone who graduated from nowhere, from the factory floor in Michelin. But you can become a MOATS graduate and legend. You can give a regular donation to support the show and my work. You can now upgrade from a mere Patreon to a MOATS graduate at £10 a month, as opposed to £5 a month, I think it is. And you can receive official MOATS legend status for £20.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Do support me on patreon.com/George Galloway. Be my BFF. They really are good friends of mine now. I chat to them online on the Patreon page as often as I can. I read all the messages that come in, and you get, well, unseen footage and unseen projects, and more of them to be discussed later when Gayatri gets here. So please, if you're not yet supporting us through patreon.com/George Galloway, do so tonight. Or give what you can on moats.tv on the website, and I'll come back to that point also. Now, I am ready to take your calls. I kept Scott Ritter on for, well, quite a bit longer than normal, because I personally found what he was saying absolutely riveting. And in particular, his analysis of the extraordinary success of the Yemeni military, I found absolutely riveting. So I can't see on my screen, as you can see, I don't have my studio with me, whether or not there are any calls. I hear that Terry is on line one, and I'm always happy to hear from him. Terry, go ahead, sir.
Hi, George. Wonderful to speak to you again. Scott Ritter, absolutely fabulous. He speaks the truth. That's why he was raided by the FBI, and they took all his stuff.
Master.
Yeah, he is brilliant. I've been following all the time. He's told the truth about what's been happening in Ukraine and in Gaza. But what I wanted to speak to you about was, it might sound a little bit off topic, but it's about Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And if you remember, they said they were going to go to Fort Knox and see if the gold was there. Well, that's all gone quiet. And I think the reason is they've told him there isn't any gold there. And this is at the point that the American dollar, which used to be the world's currency, and is declining now. They've nothing to back it up. And what I think is that the BRICS currency is going to take over, and that is what's behind everything. Like they say, follow the money. That's the thing behind it all.
There's no gold in them thar hills. That's what we must conclude from the total silence on the auditing of Fort Knox. Now, maybe now that he's unleashed, Elon Musk will tell us what the truth is. Was it audited? Did they go in? Were they allowed to go in? And when they got in, what did they find there, if they found anything at all? President Lula was talking about the dollar today at the BRICS in Rio de Janeiro. This is probably a good point for me to remind him that he owes me $200 from 1985. I don't believe in interest, so I have no wish to charge it, but and I don't even want my $200 back. I just want to interview him. But President Lula was talking this very day about the need to get out from under the dollar, even starting with 10-20% of trade between this country and that country, who are neighbors perhaps, or who are members of the BRICS, or members of the SCO, or members of the ASEAN. Why should they be trading in dollars? They can trade with each other in their own currency. And secondly, again, arising out of the BRICS, though Xi Jinping is not in Rio, and neither will President Putin be there. I have no idea why both of them are staying away, but their top men are there. They are close, if not already, at a deal that China will finally back to set up an alternative payment system to the SWIFT. Because this is the grimmest dictatorship of them all. They could stop thee and me, stop us completely by simply allowing us no space or permission to use the banking system. They can cut us off completely. They can leave us in rags, in penury, and for political reasons, not because we reneged on our debts or we were dishonest in any way, but just because they could. They could stop and cut us off because of their control of the SWIFT payments system. So a BRICS payments system, which may very well be announced at this BRICS summit in Rio, is what we really have got to get to. And if there's no gold in Fort Knox and no SWIFT hegemony, well, the dollar is so last decade. Thanks for that, Tel. Are the old political parties finished? Yes or no? Vote on Telegram, on X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. And so far, 23,000 people have voted, which is fewer than the number of people who are currently watching the show live. So if you haven't voted yet, get your vote in. Yes is the overwhelming number now, 86, 86, 87, 81. I wish I could be so sure. It's my earnest hope. It's my dream. It's my prayer. But you can affect the vote. You've got 40 or 50 minutes still to vote. Let me take a quick break, and then I'll be right back with you. Stay tuned.
A new dawn has broken, has it not?
He had that Clinton thing. His eyes were round and big and smiley, and he was very charming.
He became this incredible pop idol kind of prime minister.
I think most people who have dealt with me think I'm a pretty straight sort of guy, and I am.
New Labour was backed by the most powerful media interests because they realised he was representing them.
He was caught red-handed trading policy in return for hard cash from a businessman.
America has no truer friend than Great Britain.
Both Bush as well as Tony Blair are now wanting to plunge the world into a holocaust.
J.P. Morgan paid him off for the Iraq war. The man is a war criminal.
Is Tony Blair a war criminal? In my opinion, yes.
Most definitely.
The pursuit of money has become the dominant theme in your life.
all these relationships are, in most people's estimation, corrupt relationships.
No previous Labour Prime Minister has behaved in this shameful, money-grubbing way.
How do you sleep at night? You know, it's that. It's as a person.
Now, our next guest is a very distinguished scholar. Dr. Annelle Rodriguez Sheline is formerly of the US State Department and a research fellow for the Middle East at the Quincy Institute. As I understand it, Dr. Annelle resigned from the state over Gaza. Let's see if that's right and if she stands by it. Dr. Annelle, thank you very much for joining us. Privileged to interview you. There's been so many lies told about Gaza, particularly in Britain and the United States. It's sometimes difficult for people to keep their sanity when they see what they see on their phone and then listen to what they listen to in the mainstream media and from their governments. It is such a parallel universe. It's difficult to know whether you're in a bad dream or whether the liars know that they're lying. I presume that's what led to you walking from the US State Department, is it? Tell us, please.
Yes, I resigned in March of 2024. I was working on human rights under Biden's State Department, and October 7th had happened about 6 months before I resigned. And at first I thought, this is an opportunity. I'm inside the State Department. Maybe I can have an impact. I co-authored a dissent cable. I signed other dissent cables. I tried to be involved in the various efforts to convey how many people inside the State Department were horrified by what the United States was supporting. And after 6 months, it just became clear that there was no changing this policy, that this was coming from the White House. This was something Biden himself was quite committed to, as well as people like Brett McGurk, Jake Sullivan, even people like Samantha Power, the administrator of USAID, who made her whole career calling out genocide and the failure of governments like the United States to do something about it. They were committed to this policy. And so I decided I would go public with my resignation, and I would do it again if I thought it would have an impact. But I mean, unfortunately, it seems like very little or nothing is having any impact to change America's unconditional support for Israel's genocide.
Let me just walk back a minute. When I was your age, the State Department and the British Foreign Office were often alleged to be Arabist, was the phrase that was often used, certainly in Britain, about the Foreign Office. But I've just been reading the memoirs of British Foreign Office Minister, Conservative, Alan Duncan, who said that the Israelis think they control the Foreign Office now, and they probably do. Is it the same in the US? Has the former fondness for the Arab world disappeared from the State Department, as it definitely has the British Foreign Office?
I couldn't speak to the degree to which the State Department had a particular fondness for the Arab world. I do think that may be something that may be more particular to the British context, which had such extensive involvement in the Middle East, whereas for the United States, America's connection or sort of extent of a massive military presence in the Middle East goes back about as long as the establishment of the State of Israel. And so in addition to sort of the somewhat tired justification that America maintains a presence in the Middle East for oil, much of it is and has long been about supporting Israel. And that does reflect the power of the Israel lobby, as well as the political influence of Christian Zionists.
Well, that power is being demonstrated all over again, isn't it? Joe Biden's love affair with Israel was such that he once said in the Senate that if Israel didn't exist, America would have to invent it. And he spent his whole career as a shill for the Zionist movements, the American Israel lobby, and so on. But the man that was campaigning until the last minute in the state of Michigan, promising that he would be a peace president if elected, the man who told the people in Dearborn, Michigan, friends of mine, who met him and were told by him that there would be a big change and that he would end the war in Gaza, that turned out to be a crock, as you say in the United States. So that vice-like grip that the Israel lobby has on both parties is being demonstrated all over again, isn't it?
It's true. I think initially there was some excitement with the fact that Trump came in and immediately imposed a ceasefire, which simply demonstrated that Biden had never actually used any American leverage, even though the line had always been, we are working tirelessly towards a ceasefire. Clearly, Trump demonstrated before he even came into office that that was not the case. And I think initially there was some optimism because of the fact that Trump did impose the ceasefire, although he did not require Netanyahu to stick to it. It was violated routinely during phase one, and then, as people know, it never reached phase two. And Israel hasn't allowed actual aid into Gaza since March 2nd. But Trump did do certain things that went against the preferences of Netanyahu and the Israeli government. Things like signing the ceasefire deal with the Houthis and getting the U.S. out of what was becoming a debacle of jets falling off aircraft carriers and just billions of dollars. I believe it had already been $2 billion that the Biden administration had spent on that campaign, and that even within just a matter of weeks, Trump had spent another $1 billion. And so ending that, normalizing relations with Syria, for example, that wasn't something that initially it seemed that Netanyahu was as in favor of. And then initiating direct negotiations with the Iranians over their nuclear program. So I think there had been some initial optimism that maybe Trump was willing to establish a foreign policy in the Middle East that was more dictated by American interests to a certain extent, although he was never willing to go against Netanyahu on Gaza, clearly, and has been fully supportive of the genocide and has sent additional hundreds of millions of dollars in security assistance and other forms of support. And then clearly, as we all observed, this perhaps facade of Trump sort of diverging from Netanyahu came crashing down when Netanyahu successfully got Trump to drop bombs on Iran. I'm somewhat concerned about what's going to come out of this meeting tomorrow with Netanyahu coming back to Washington. My understanding from Israeli media is Netanyahu may be asking Trump to greenlight more attacks on Iran. There's been some rumors about the possibility of Syria perhaps normalizing relations with Israel, which I think would probably just be a demonstration of how weak al-Shara is as a president. There's also been rumors of an actual ceasefire finally in Gaza, but we know that Netanyahu will violate it at will and has been adamant about retaining the right to again break the ceasefire and start to reinitiate the genocide, which will continue as long as he does not allow actual aid in. It matters whether or not he's firing, but there are babies without baby formula. People are starving to death. And the Gaza Humanitarian Fund is making a mockery of what aid is supposed to be. I mean, it's a means of killing Palestinians more than it's a means of saving them or providing them with assistance.
We'll come back to Gaza, I promise you, because I want to ask you particularly about the GHF. But as I'm pretty sure that Netanyahu is coming to Washington, not for photo calls or backslapping, although Donald said he would be having a bit of a celebration with them. I'm pretty sure that it is Iran related. And I've been reading today that the Israeli attacks on Yemen on Iran were one whole year in the making, 12 whole months, which means that Donald Trump was negotiating with Iran on an entirely false prospectus. He was leading the Iranians to believe that the standoff could be resolved through negotiations, whilst his closest ally was at an advanced level in a plan for a murderous blitzkrieg against them. I'm not sure why anyone would trust the American government now in any negotiations if that turns out to be true.
Exactly. I do think that it is not entirely clear when it was that Trump decided that he was going to greenlight Israel's actions. We know that at a certain point, Trump was lying to the Iranians, but it's not quite clear when that started. I do think that initially Trump has this idea in his head that he is the deal maker in chief. He has yet to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. He has yet to negotiate an end to the genocide in Gaza. And he seemed to think that he was going to be able to get a quick nuclear deal with the Iranians. As he said, he wanted something longer, stronger, better than the JCPOA that he walked out of in 2018. My understanding is what happened was initially the American negotiating position was it was achieving progress. However, it was when the Americans adopted the Israeli talking point of zero enrichment, which Iran is permitted to enrich uranium for civilian purposes, for its own purposes, because it is a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. But the Israeli talking point and then the American talking point was Iran cannot enrich any uranium, which is a red line for the Iranian government. So as soon as the U.S. negotiating team had adopted that position, negotiations stalled. Trump is not patient. The Israelis said, let us bomb them a little. This will soften them up. And Trump gave it the green light, including by sending 300 Hellfire missiles to Israel to use on Iran ahead of their attack on June 13th. So again, the question of when was it that Trump decided the negotiations weren't working? Was that his plan from the beginning? Or was there a point at which he became frustrated and decided he was going to maintain the false premise that they were going to be meeting to negotiate in Oman that weekend? And instead, he'd already told Netanyahu to go for it. I think another crucial point is we saw statements initially coming out of the State Department, coming out of the Pentagon, that the United States was not involved in Israel's bombing. But then Trump saw how well the bombing was playing on Fox News and felt he wanted to be a part of this and suddenly wanted some of this glory for himself, and then started to indicate, well, maybe we were involved. And obviously the United States is involved in everything Israel does militarily because we provide the vast majority of their weapons, and much of it we just give them as well as selling them. So then the fact that we did see Trump dropping bombs on Iran was, the only reason I have any optimism about any of this is the fact that we did see very significant pushback, in contrast to something like the lead up to the Iraq War, where the vast majority of the country was still had a bloodlust from 9/11 and had been sold this narrative that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and that somehow Iraq was involved in 9/11, which obviously is completely false. But there was this notion that we have to go after those people. And there was a lot of support for the Iraq War. Whereas I think I don't trust that Trump wouldn't have continued to fight this war because, as you said, he campaigned on this idea of no new wars, no more forever wars, and yet was led almost into yet another forever war because of the influence of Israel. But I was heartened to see even people like Marjorie Taylor Greene being very public in calling for no new wars. You know, the fact that Thomas Massie, a Republican, and Ro Khanna, a Democrat, had introduced a war powers resolution in the House, and Tim Kaine, a senator, had introduced the companion bill in the Senate. So my hope is that if this is what Netanyahu is asking for tomorrow, is let's hit the Iranians again, that Trump would understand that there is a cost to pay for this, that his constituent, you know, many Americans believed him when he said no more wars. And that's why a lot of people voted for him. And that's also why a lot of people didn't vote for Harris, is because she had said she was in favor of Biden's foreign policy. And that's why we saw such a decline in turnout, you know, massive turnout for Biden in 2020. And 29% of the voters who didn't vote for Harris after voting for Biden cited their main issue was Gaza, because they knew that Harris wasn't going to do anything different on Gaza.
My goodness, you're good. Will you allow me one more question, Doctor? It's a slightly, maybe deeper one, if I may say so. I keep waiting for, I see journalists murdered by the hundred. And I saw in a cafe, to call it a cafe is a misnomer, but it's where journalists went to charge their phones and get some internet and file their stories and so on, which was full not just of journalists but of women and children mainly. I saw it destroyed and the river of blood that it set forth into the Mediterranean on the beach, a beach I know well, just the other day. I keep wondering, when will, and I saw the head of the Indonesian hospital in Gaza, a hospital of some moment. My wife is Indonesian, murdered. I see another doctor with his wife and all of his children murdered in a tent overnight in Gaza. I keep asking myself, when will the journalists, when will the doctors, when will the feminists, when will the pro-life lobby that cares so much about unborn children but nothing about children already born and dying in infancy in Gaza, when will all these different sectors of our population say enough is enough? I'm not singling America out. I have exactly the same question here in Britain. Whenever that point is, it certainly hasn't been reached yet, has it?
No, I ask myself the same question. I think a big part of it is the way that Israel has gone about this genocide has been cumulative. You know, people may remember that very first hospital that was hit, I believe, on October 17th. And there was this whole narrative that it was a misfired Hamas rocket. Israel would never strike a hospital, being the implication. And then they learned that that didn't get a big reaction. Now we're going to hit a hospital. Now we're going to, and remember, there was all I remember right around the time that I resigned was when the World Central Kitchen humanitarian workers were killed. That got a lot of attention. But then it all just starts to become so normalized. And I think at this point, so many people just feel such despair. And it is from the perspective of the mainstream media, they're not reporting on it anymore. It's just it's just normal that Palestinians are so dehumanized that it simply no longer registers. And so I think that is part of why we continue to see people not calling this out, because it has kind of over time grown to sort of such a scale that I think people can no longer process it, and they do feel very disempowered. At the same time, I do take some heart from the fact that certain people who once defended this, I mean, figures like Piersmorgan, for example, who had long defended this, coming out against it, seeing the performers at Glastonbury and all the attention that got. I also want to draw attention to the fact that there had been a UN conference that was going to be co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia that was scheduled to happen in New York, which was postponed by Israel's attack and, to my knowledge, has not yet been rescheduled. It might correspond to the UN General Assembly in September. But that was about the question of Palestine. And the idea was to coalesce a global coalition to do something, not only about the genocide, but also just the fact that Israel has been violating international law with total impunity for decades. And although the countries of the UN have voted multiple times to try to impose some accountability, it has not yet worked. And so it's unclear what's going to happen with that conference. But in the meantime, the Hague Group, which is a group that is co-chaired by South Africa and Colombia, as well as several other countries from the global south, Cuba, Honduras, Malaysia, a few others, are meeting in Bogota in this next week and are trying to impose some kind of accountability. And Francesca Albanese, the special rapporteur, the UN special rapporteur for the occupied territories of Palestine, is calling for all countries to participate, to impose some degree of consequences on Israel. Although obviously, as long as the United States continues to support Israel and as long as the EU remains its major trading partner, it's going to be difficult to actually impose real consequences. But other countries can begin to even just take small and symbolic measures. This was how global condemnation of South Africa, of apartheid South Africa, began. Was not from the United States, was not from the UK, but it was from the rest of the world that understood that if countries are allowed to violate international law with such impunity, it's not just a moral stain and it's not just horrifying for the people who are subjected to that, but this undermines the fabric of international law for all of us. You know, now it's Israel. Who's it going to be in the future when it could be you and me being subjected to a country that is tearing apart the fabric of our society, that is committing genocide against us because the world did not come together to say this is unacceptable and Israel, you are not allowed to do this and no country is allowed to do this. So I very much hope that other countries will be participating in this meeting in Bogota, and that we will continue to see more and more countries, people and countries or individuals who once defended or were once quiet about what Israel is doing, who say enough is enough.
Dr. Annelle, you are a shining light. I'll remember this interview always. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. Let me take a quick break and then it's your calls all the way up to Gayatri's social media review. Stay tuned. I don't believe that the mainland European countries give a toss about Britain, and I'm certain that the United States would not sacrifice itself for Britain. That's why I say Britain is completely marginalized. As for the Trident missiles, of course, if the United States, which has dual control over these missiles, gave permission for them to be launched, of course, they would incinerate Russian cities. But what good would that do us? Because we'd all be dead, including the people that fired the missiles. You feel me?
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
You're watching the mother of all talk shows. Two outstanding interviews this evening already. Now it's your calls. Declan in Dublin is up first. Go ahead, Declan.
Right, George. You asked that lady some very interesting questions there at the end, essentially what can be done. Now, I'm trying to do things for the Christians in Taipei on the West Bank who are getting a terrible hammering at the moment. But you know, most people don't care. And it's up to the likes of Jeremy Corbyn and you, in fact, to try to streamline and make a force of all this dissent to this mass murder that's going on. And I think what Corbyn should do, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel with a Labour Party of 30 or 40 years ago, is to make alliances with the likes of your party and with whatever other groups are out there. Now, what you bring to the party is, in my opinion, you are good with words, but to me at least, your main thing is that Tony Blair expelled you from the Labour Party, and being expelled by the likes of Tony Blair and his horrible friends, I think that's the highest commendation anybody anywhere will get. Jeremy Corbyn is not going to change Britain on his own. He needs a group of allies, and he should target, if you like, the anti-war sentiment. And one of your friends who could run on a loose ticket with Corbyn, etc., is Craig Murray. And Craig Murray made an interesting point that those two British bases in Cyprus should be essentially surrounded, and maybe kneecap and people like that could do concerts outside of it. That would get the necessary momentum going. As regards the other side of the pond, I think Elon Musk again, and Scott Ritter more or less said it, he's not a politician, and America is a very diverse country with very diverse economies, and for him to make an impact, besides what Ritter said, I think what he should do, what he could do, and Musk already suggested, is to throw money into European political parties, like, for example, Jeremy Corbyn's, just to stir things up, as well as into the likes of Tucker Carlson and people like him. If people want change, it has to be directed. And the job of people like Corbyn is to make some kind of an agreement with the likes of you, not necessarily on the Schleswig-Holstein question or other marginal things, but on the major things, which is these ongoing genocides, which is a stain on all of us, every single one of us. So that's my point.
Exactly. Well, it's a good one, and I do have a way with words, is what I think you said, but I've also got a backbone made of steel, and I've got a massive audience around the country and around the world, and it wouldn't seem to make much sense to disregard any or all of these three attributes. But Elon Musk is not a politician, but he is very smart. His whole life has shown that. And I think he will adopt, you've heard of the smartphone, his will be the smart party. It will target its spend in very significant and strategic places. So, for example, for some bizarre reason, to me unexplained, Trump has developed an irrational hatred for this Congressman, Thomas Massie, that most decent people in the country think is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And there's no reason being given why Trump should be hating on him all the time and being determined to spend him out of Congress, to primary him and destroy him. And most people think he's a pretty good egg. And so if Musk moves in on that contest in Kentucky, where Massie is at risk of being outspent 10-1, Musk can turn that around. And he can ensure that Massie survives. And if he concentrates on, say, 10 congressional seats and, say, 5 senatorial seats, he could change the political world for American domestic politics. I've got no hopes at all on his foreign policy. My only hope is that he doesn't have one. My only hope is that he decides America doesn't need any more foreign policy. America doesn't need any more wars, any more foreign distractions. My biggest hope is that he will say, if you elect us, we'll ensure that the American government stays at home and fixes the roof and the fence and the drains and the roads and the bridges and the railways. That would be my hope. Declan, thank you for an outstanding call. Are the old political parties finished? Yes or no is the comment, is the poll this evening. There are comments on YouTube. Scan the QR code now, leave a comment on the YouTube stream, and I'll read them out. Abosimiosi gives £5 Thank you very much. The old political parties are far from finished. Look at how the so-called alternative parties behave in Italy, France, and Spain. They're more of the same. It's a very sober point and a somber one. Nigel McClatchy says the old political parties in the UK are not finished. It's up to the people to get active. 2010 Sanctuary says, I wish you would form a strong coalition. It's crucial. They will not know what to do. Please, Mr. Corbyn, join forces for the people. And Samantha Chavana says, American here, not a chance in hell will I vote for a party led by Musk. Fair enough, Samantha, but will you vote for a party led by Kamala and Donald? That's kind of the important second part of that question. Nancy McMonarch, what a great name, said Elon thought he'd be king of the hipsters in San Francisco. Oops, everybody wound up hating him. So he ran to Trump's warm embrace, mainly for spite. Okay, on line 2 in London is Nana on the war. Which war, Nana? Any particular one or all of them? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, George. You are doing a very great job for the whole world, and especially London, United Kingdom, where you find yourself. We are so proud of you and all your crew, the people that you work with, in the studio. I am personally very proud of also Scott Ritter and everyone that you have interviewed today. George, when I was growing up, I grew up having this in my mind, that Europe is a place where common sense is so vast that everything that they do, they take it into consideration, they take everyone on board, and for that much, I saw Europe to be on top of the world, even though there were places like America, Australia, South America, everywhere, Africa, whatever. But Europe is a continent, was and now also is in a way that I really admire and wanted to live there because of these qualities that I have mentioned just a while ago. Now I came to Europe.
Well,
and
look,
then I realized...
I'll tell you what, Nana, it's I've got a lot of calls, brother, so I'll have to cut you short. Although I'm deeply grateful for what you said. It's a common misconception, the one that you have. I don't quite know how it has survived so long. Europe, after all, was the source of the First World War. Europe was the source of the Second World War. European peoples murdered each other, massacred each other, genocided each other throughout the 20th century, never mind previous centuries, where wars were once upon a time numbered in the centuries. 100 Years' War, imagine. The 20 Years' War, the 7 Years' War. The Europeans have a conceit for themselves, as Greece to America's Rome. But it's misplaced, it's ill-advised, it's not actually true. And if you look now at the quality of statesmanship, stateswomanship abroad in Europe, including Britain, which is, of course, a European country, well, you wouldn't think them superior to anybody. You could not look at any other part of the world and say our crop of leaders are wiser, better educated, better at politics, better at anything than any other group of leaders around the world. For me, it is the prevailing ideology of Europe and North America and Australia, which is a common prevailing ideology. It's that which has failed, and it has failed for the same reasons and demonstrates the same morbid symptoms of failure in every part of the world where that ideology prevails. Good call, though. Let's stay in London and talk with Lynn. Lynn, what would you like to say?
Hi, George. I'd just like to talk about direct democracy, and just leading on from what you were saying, I think the quality of the political class just keeps getting worse and worse, and we're being foisted with legislation that we don't agree with more and more often. You know, especially when you look at the UK and the late abortion bill in the last few weeks that allows children to be aborted up until the moment they're born.
Yeah.
And I'd really like
unbelievable. That would never have passed. That would never have passed a direct democracy. Never.
Absolutely.
Neither
Absolutely.
would the death bill. If we had direct democracy, referenda on these things, electronic referenda, these things would all be shot down in flames.
Just that it makes the politicians craft better bills. They've got to pass the public sniff test. So, you know, I looked to Switzerland there with a population of 8.9 million. And if a piece of legislation is passed, the citizens have got 3 months to get 50,000 objections registered to call a referendum. And they have 4 referendums a year where they vote on various bills that hasn't passed public scrutiny. I just think in this day and age, representative politics are just, you know, it's just so old hat. We're all educated, we all use social media now, and I think now's the time where we have to say enough's enough. The political class need to be pulled back into check.
I think you're right, and I think this is an idea. Yeah, I've heard you say this before, and I didn't pay enough attention when I first heard you say it. But the more I've heard you and read you on this, I think that you're onto something. It's an idea whose time has come. The old system of electing a parliament for 5 years, only because of the first past the post system, on the basis that you hate this guy less than you hate the other guy, because that's very often the judgment that people are making. And then he or she sits there for 5 years with absolute power on all matters, and whatever they decide, however they behave, however porcine or lazy or revolting their conduct, they're there for 5 years with the absolute power to use your vote to pass things that would never pass public muster. I think you're onto something there, Lynn. We need to develop it further. Now, MOATS donors, can I just thank the best donors of the week so far? If I can just get them on my screen. Yeah, Ursula Coffey, Diana Saleh, Rasmus Pedersen, Athena Neophytou, and John Magari. Thank you all very much indeed, our best and most generous donors. But everyone can be a donor tonight. MOATS.tv. Even if you only leave £1, surely this show has been worth that. Let's go. Stay in England. All the callers, have they been in England so far? Hussein is in Loughborough on Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana. Go ahead. Go ahead, Hussein.
Hi, George. It's a real honour to speak to you for the first time. And I'm a massive fan of yours.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks so much. It's just really a quick question. Obviously, former Labour MP Zara Sultana left the Labour Party last week. And obviously there's talk that she's going to be joining forces with Jeremy Corbyn and some other pro-Palestine candidates. And so it's just really a question as to what would be your advice? How can we get behind people like these who are against genocide and who are against imperialist wars, and on a lot of things they have a similar opinion and view to yourself. And but before you answer that, George, I also just want to say that in 2024, in March of 2024, when you won the Rochdale by-election, and it was one of the happiest moments for myself. I remember you being on live TV and your announcement and saying that this is for Gaza. And it was such a legendary moment that you will be remembered in history for. And I think a lot of the British people want more moments like these. So if you could just provide some advice on how we can support people like yourself and Corbyn and others, please.
Well, look, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you very much, Hussein. I did deal with this in my monologue, so I won't spend too much time on it now. But I would say that ending British involvement in foreign wars must be one of the top 3, top 5, top 10 demands of any political force that can claim to represent people like you and people like many others that are watching this show. But it cannot be the number one, and it certainly cannot be the only, because whilst you and I probably weep, if we don't weep, our heart breaks for what we see happening in Gaza and so on. There are tens of millions of people in Britain who don't think about it and don't care about it at all. And every one of those people has a vote. And every one of those votes has to be fought for. So any new party that, or coalition, or Popular Front, or whatever Jeremy is going to call it, and I do think the name is important and the form is important, but whatever form it takes, whatever name it has, it will have to have a very clear profile on domestic British issues that are of interest to and in the interests of every single person in Britain. Whether they agree with you and me on Gaza or not. Otherwise, it will merely be preaching to the converted, preaching to the choir, and that's not what we need at this point in time. We need political leadership on the fact that energy costs in Britain are quadrupled. Why? Why is energy in Britain far more expensive than it is in Germany, when Germany's Nord Stream 2 pipeline was blown up? In what universe is electricity, power, energy in Britain vastly more expensive than it is even in Germany, never mind in comparison with other Western countries? Now, I know that there are people who are, maybe they don't pay energy bills, or maybe they can easily afford to pay them. But there are tens of millions of people in Britain who have a desperate interest in the fact that their energy bill is 4 times higher than it was 2 years ago, at a time when the power companies, the energy companies, are making 4 times the profit that they were a couple of years ago. We need to get to grips with issues like that. The state of our railways, the state of our water, the dramatic collapse in the public realm. I don't want to say where we are right now, but we're in Europe. The public realm in Europe makes our country look like a disgrace. I'm in a country where there are no potholes, none at all. Where there's no garbage on the streets, where there's nobody running around with machetes. In fact, they're closing prisons because they don't have enough prisoners to put in them. Now, somebody has to speak up for Britain. Somebody has to lead for Britain. Because we are like that water that is circling the drain, and we are in real danger of going down that drain. That's the kind of message, that's the kind of leadership that we have to offer the British people. I'd say much more, Hussein, if I had time, but I don't. Thanks for another great call. Now, it's been another great week for the podcast. We're in the top 20 in Russia, Mexico, and Portugal. You believe that? Russia, Mexico, and Portugal. 3 separate language groups. We are in the top 20 of their podcast charts. So please, there's a QR code on the end of the screen now. Make sure you scan it and download our podcast. We've got a caller from China, from Hong Kong. It's Chris on Corbyn and Hong Kong. Go ahead, I'm all ears, Chris.
Oh, gosh, George, I will use very strong words, sir, but you'll have to excuse me. I've got a bout of opiumism about me, and the hope got me so, carried away. I was extremely high, and the downcome was really bad, and then I had to do a bit of reading and thought, yes, where have I heard all this before? So, not amused about the Sultana Corbyn bandwagon. I don't believe it's actually necessary to have a new left party in the United Kingdom. Surely we've had enough launch since 2020. And what exactly really is on offer? And let me put it this way, because I'm sick to death of the Corbynista, and I was one of them myself. I'm sick to death of the lies, and I'm sick to death of what's happening in Gaza. So let me be blunt. Unlike Mr. Corbyn, I don't denounce Hamas fighting against genocidal maniacs. I certainly don't go pushing the notion of a two-state solution, which has been dead in the water for a quarter of a century. So why can't we all be honest and just say, well, we need a single-state solution. The name of said state is Palestine, and Palestine will be inclusive of Christians, Jews, and Muslims, i.e. a normal state. Is it too difficult for any leader in the United Kingdom, regardless of what political persuasion allegedly they belong to come out with the obvious? Like to answer, George?
Well, no, it's not beyond any political leader, because you've just described me. That is our policy on both of those issues that you raised. These are the Workers' Party of Britain's policy. And we did fantastically well, considering we were completely blacked out of the election. We got 210,000 votes, which is not just the biggest vote that any socialist party in Britain has ever polled. It is double the last or nearest competitor of that. So we did really well. But we didn't elect any MPs. We came second in 3 constituencies. So we nearly had 3 MPs. And if we had just got that 3, we would be in a very different position today. But we didn't. And we need a party or a coalition, preferably, that will get not 210,000 votes, but will get millions of votes. and will elect not a handful of MPs, but scores of MPs, such that they make a difference in the direction of the British Parliament. A bit like we were talking earlier to Scott Ritter about in the United States. So I think that's the reason why I gave the welcome to Mr. Corbyn's initiative that I did right at the top of the show, the beginning of the show, and I stand by that. Mr. Corbyn has different political views on these matters and on the Russia-Ukraine war and on various other things. And that needs to be reflected in the ballot box also, because if Mr. Corbyn and I can agree on 5 things, and if me and Mr. Corbyn can agree with many other people on those 5 things, well, that'll be a step forward, Chris. That really will be a step forward. And, you know, softly, softly, catchy monkey, as they say, in Hong Kong. I'm joined by a legend. Gayatri is in the studio with the social media roundup. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Are the old political parties finished? Chris Anthony Joy says, George, don't you find it odd how Farage, Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe and all fell out just at the same time as Elon Musk and Trump did? I find it coincidental, and I don't believe in coincidences. When a party is strong, it gets broken up.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, as Freud, I think, said. I don't think you can treat all these things as just the same. Of course, parties will be infiltrated. Of course, parties will be destabilized. I mean, Corbyn's party isn't even founded yet, and the media are discovering all kinds of shenanigans inside the ranks of what appears to be a very tight or small group. Certainly I know nobody in it, so it must be pretty small. But it's big enough for leaks. It's big enough for damaging and destabilizing stories.
Well, that's another resemblance, isn't it? Something popping up in the US and something popping up on this side of the pond.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Reiner says far too many sheep will still follow them, unaware of the reality happening right in front of them. We were talking about this earlier because we live, of course, in the countryside where we're surrounded by sheep, and we witness how the sheep gets organized, being told and taught to be disciplined and obedient to the farmer and the sheepdog. How they go around in circles, and the sheepdogs just move them from one place to the other, and they just follow. They just follow.
Yeah, the dog doesn't even have to bite them.
They don't have to bite them. They just bark a little bit or not. They just follow. So that was.
You've got a great video. We can't show it; gives too much away. But you took a great video of it, and to me, I mean, even the most stupid citizen, if they looked at your video, could see the metaphor, because that's what we've got. We've got one sheepdog, 2 sheepdogs, corralling huge numbers of sheep, even right onto the truck that takes them to their grisly demise in the slaughterhouse. You get my drift?
The Stabby Tabby says, we have way too many politicians in the UK and the US. Well, it's true in the UK's case. Can I remind you that India, the largest democracy in the world, for 1.5 billion people, they have like 543 members in the House of the People. And Indonesia, being the 4th largest democracy in the world, for almost 300 million people, they've got also under 600, only 580. And the UK has got 600
652.
So yeah, you're right in that sense. Agents.
Without a doubt, far too many politicians, and most of them not worth a dollar.
Adrian says, why does the entire world remain silent? Why aren't people up against the US, which right now seems to be acting like the largest global terrorist, hand in hand with Israel? The scale and brutality of what's happening is beyond words, and yet the world watches in silence. How do you see all this? You had a very revealing conversation with our doctor earlier. She laid
Not
it
our
out.
doctor.
No. I mean our guest. You were talking about.
She was amazing.
Yeah. Great testimony from her, and the pain. We feel the pain, Adrian. We're all feeling the pain. Not least because the crime is happening right there in Gaza, in Palestine. We are feeling the consequences at our end whenever we try to say something. Remember the...
we could face 14 years in jail.
Yes, you're not going to risk that, so you're not going to talk about that. But here, Karaoke Star says a priest, age 83, is arrested in a Pal Action protest in London. Reverend Sue Parfitt was among those detained at the demonstration that took place just hours after the activist group was proscribed. This is some of the consequences.
This is a bright spot for us, though, and you have to look at it in context, because it proves how stupid our government is, proves how stupid the state is, proves how stupid the Commissioner of Police is. He said on television today there's no age limit for in the law, but there is presumably an IQ. There is presumably an understanding that arresting an 83-year-old priest and taking her off to prison is a very stupid thing to do, even from your own standpoint.
Yes.
And the fact that they're so stupid maximizes the number of people who hate them and who oppose them and who are ready to be on the next protest. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they were smarter, I'd be more afraid of them. If they were not as stupid, we'd have a more difficult job.
And something similar happened in Berlin this weekend as well during the protest.
Horrific.
Another elderly man in this case, but who was a Holocaust survivor.
He was a Jewish Holocaust survivor.
Also bundled up.
From Germany, arrested for holding up a sign saying Jews against genocide. The German Gestapo dragged him off to prison, and he looked about the same age as that old woman.
Yeah, it's outrageous. And also earlier this week in the Netherlands, do you remember the football game between Tel Aviv Maccabi and the Dutch team, which went out of hand with the supporters, the Israeli supporters, basically causing havoc in the capital of the Netherlands.
They caused havoc, then cried pogrom.
They cried pogrom, and everyone involved, all the locals involved were labeled anti-Semitic and vandals, basically. So it turns out that there was a lady at the metro platform who was saying Free Palestine or something along the line. She was beaten up, spit upon, and when this case came up in court, it turns out that the CCTV of that particular spot at the metro was erased.
Amazing.
Yeah. Coincidence? Finally, let me just mention Damascus, because he donated $4.99. He says, this is a turning point in our history because we are not freeing Palestine. Palestine is freeing us. This is a quote from Nicole Janis. Nicole Janis is a wonderful actress, and personality online on YouTube and Instagram. And she's made some very on-point videos. And yeah, this is it. It's us who are being free. Palestine is free, but we are not free. We're stuck in chains.
No, we're not free. Britain is now one of the unfreest countries in the world, official. We have fallen into the lowest tiers of freedom of press, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, free elections, and so on. Britain's going to hell in a handcart. And I can see it from where we are now. I can see it all too clearly.
I think that we have got one last caller. our legend Erebos. Can you double check?
The legend, well, we can't not take a legend. The whole show has to be cleared for the legend that is Erebos in New York. Erebos, welcome back, my friend.
Greetings and salutations, Mr. G, to the wonderful Gayatri Galloway and her flamboyant Hunger Games-esque, fashionique, magnifique, as well as the MOATS staff and the international MOATS family. Just to tie up some old business, I still have that email for you. May 4th, as in May the 4th be with you, pertaining to the Paul Robeson request. That's still there in your email. I called primarily to mention that I voted no on the poll. If you recall, I did what I could with the People's Party U.S. to give people a third option to defeat the oligarchy, the uniparty. And our candidate, with some help by others, the Green Party, Chris Hedges, but he made the decision himself, Cornel West. They rat-effed us. I'm going to be kind because I'm on MOATS, but I'd rather be hardcore. He rat-effed us, then ran to the Green Party, and then rat-effed them, and down we went. So it seems to me that every time there's an option for a viable third party, the thing they said that we didn't have ballot access, well, he turned on us in 48 hours, and within a week he was gone. You can't get ballot access in 48 hours or a week. I don't care who you are, not even Muskie, and his billionaire party, which, by the way, we had a billionaire mayor named Michael Bloomberg in New York City. We also have a billionaire POTUS presently, and it's not working out. Why? Because the existence of a billionaire means they put themselves first. The very existence of one means that it's not possible to put society first or anybody first. So it looks like another grift to me, and I think good old Scott Ritter there, I think he was sort of auditioning for his future Secretary of Defense job should Muskie get through. I think that's what he was doing, but that's my.
That would be a big step forward.
Well, yeah, it would be a big step forward, providing it would happen. I don't think we'll be saved by billionaires. I think there's no, look at the democracy on the X platform. Where's Garland Nixon? I mean, he's still paying, unfortunately, to be on X. Where's him? How many people are being shadow banned? How many Zionists on the X administration level that look at people's tweets and, do these different things of deplatforming and all of that? So I think it's another grift, but I'd love to be proven wrong on these things. But it doesn't seem that, at least where I am at in the United States of America, it doesn't seem that people are ready for a third party until it gets to 1929 depression levels, when people want to eat each other and they have no choice but to unite.
Well, that's a very powerful call, and I agree with much of what you said. Maybe we are close to a 1929 moment, given that the United States level of debt is now equal to the United States gross domestic product. In other words, you have no money to spend on anything except paying the interest on the debt. I mean nothing. No army, no navy, no air force, no police, no roads, no transportation, no schools, no health service such as it is for the very poorest people in the United States. You now have no money to spend on any of those things. Except, of course, you will print money. You will print nonsense money. Pieces of paper, or more accurately, numbers on a computer screen. You'll invent the money to pay for the minimum number of things that you need to pay for, not least your $1 trillion defense budget, $1 trillion, when your level of debt is now exactly equal to your entire production of wealth in a year. So maybe we are headed for 1929. Maybe we are headed to stockbrokers taking a header out of the windows on Wall Street. Maybe we are headed to a Great Depression. Maybe we are headed to tent cities in all of your parks. And maybe it will take that level of cataclysm to change people, to make them shake out of this ridiculous adhesion to a duopoly which doesn't serve them at all, which serves only the billionaires, only the military, only the military industrial contractors and the rest. That's what the American people get from the Democrats and from the Republicans. And of course, it's highly likely that the billionaire Elon Musk will not support the kind of policies that are required to change the course of America. But he won't half knock that duopoly around a bit. He won't half create openings for new forces, new arguments to be heard. If the Republicans lose their majority in the House and in the Senate, and both the Senate and the House are required to court the votes of the America Party, well, we'll have to try and influence the America Party. I take all of what you said about the shortcomings of democracy on the X platform. I'm suing X in the High Court in Dublin. Nobody's more aware of it than me. But it is much freer than it was. It is much freer than when the spooks of the American government and its security services were literally going through everybody's account and deciding who was to get a shout or not on X. So it could be much better, but it has been much worse. So it's not that I'm a convert to the America Party. I'm thinking now of that Simon and Garfunkel song, "We've all gone to look for America." I hope that we can find it. Robos on the Paul Robeson. I never was able to play your wonderful rendition, as I'm sure it was, of Joe Hill as Paul Robeson, recorded in your shower, but I very much want to, and so do all the viewers. So please, let's find a way of sending it in a form that I can open. Look, it's time to thank tonight's top donors who've been on to the MOATS.tv website during the show: Iqbal Khan, Vanessa Lackford, David Buckley, Sue Francis, and Andre Minev. A big thanks to all of you for your generosity, and a big ask of all the rest of you to now go to MOATS.tv and leave whatever you can, even if it's $1, even if it's €1, even if it's £1. Gayatri, I can't take you for chips because of the time difference. All the chip shops are shut. But I will take you downstairs for a bag of roasted peanuts. How about that? It's been marvelous for us. I hope it was also for you. And if it was, come back on Wednesday for the midweek mother of all talk shows. Good night.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.